It was Valentine's Day, 2014, when Loretta Saunders vanished. Her boyfriend, Yalcin, was immediately worried. She was pregnant with their child, and the couple was over the moon, excitedly making plans for their new baby. But then, Loretta stopped responding to texts and calls. 3 days passed with no word, leaving Yalcin confused and increasingly concerned. Then, an unsettling message appeared on his phone, supposedly from Loretta. It asked for her mother's maiden name, a bizarre question given their close relationship. Yalcin knew something was terribly wrong. His fears would be tragically confirmed 2 weeks later when Loretta's body was found. She had been murdered. Loretta Saunders was born in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Newfoundland, and Labrador, Canada. Her large family included 7 biological children, with Loretta being the 5th. Her parents, Miriam and Clayton, also fostered numerous Aboriginal children, meaning their home was always bustling, a dynamic Loretta cherished. Despite a loving upbringing, Loretta's life wasn't without its struggles. During her school years, she allegedly endured physical and sexual abuse, which severely impacted her mental health. A move to Montreal, at a young age, further destabilized her, and she spiraled into a deep depression. Yet, Loretta was resilient. She pushed through these setbacks, completed high school, and gained acceptance to St. Mary's University in Halifax. There, she pursued criminology, with aspirations of becoming a lawyer. As an Indigenous woman, Loretta was passionate about dedicating her honors thesis to the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Canada. She had personally faced discrimination due to her heritage and was determined to amplify the voices of Indigenous women, making it her life's mission to drive change and improve the lives of others. Loretta had been in a nearly 3-year relationship with Yalcin, who was from Turkey. Their joy multiplied when Loretta discovered she was pregnant with his child. Far from being overwhelmed, both Loretta and Yalcin embraced the news as a blessing. Around this time, Loretta faced a hurdle with her thesis. St. Mary's University denied her honors thesis topic on MMIWG, withholding crucial research funding. Undeterred and desperate to advocate for Indigenous women, Loretta devised a new plan. She decided to rent out her empty apartment to fund her research. She found a couple, Blake Leggett and Victoria Henneberry, to rent the unit, believing this would resolve her financial predicament. The 14th of February, 2014, Valentine's Day, began with plans for Loretta and Yalcin to spend the day together. However, Loretta suddenly vanished, her phone unanswered. Yalcin frantically tried calling and texting, but his messages went unread. He contacted Loretta's sister, Delilah, hoping she had seen her. During this distressing time, Yalcin received an odd text from Loretta's phone. It read, "I'm so stressed that I can't even remember my own mother's maiden name." This struck Yalcin as highly suspicious. Loretta and her mother were very close, and such a memory lapse was entirely out of character. Other texts indicated she was locked out of her online banking apps and meeting an unnamed friend, behaviors uncharacteristic of the usually responsible Loretta, who always informed loved ones of her whereabouts. Loretta's family also tried to reach her without success. With Loretta pregnant and potentially in danger, 3 agonizing days passed before the 26-year-old was officially reported missing. Her 2000 Toyota Celica was also nowhere to be found. The police began their search by tracing Loretta's last known movements, focusing on her car as a key lead. They quickly discovered that Loretta had an important errand on the day she disappeared. She was going to her apartment to collect overdue rent from her tenants. This immediately piqued the investigators' interest. Before heading to the apartment, detectives questioned Yalcin, who confirmed that Loretta's first task on Friday, the 13th of February, was to visit her tenants, Blake Leggett and Victoria Henneberry, for rent collection. Eerily, she hadn't been seen or heard from since that visit. Arriving at Loretta's apartment in Halifax, police found no one home. Upon gaining entry, they noted the apartment was impeccably clean and quiet, with no signs of a struggle. Neighbors informed them the couple claimed to be on a Valentine's getaway and hadn't been seen since. The next crucial step for detectives was reviewing the apartment building's CCTV footage. A camera at the main entrance, the only point of entry and exit, captured all movements. Investigators meticulously reviewed the footage from the 13th of February, the day Loretta visited her tenants. Sure enough, Loretta was seen entering the complex just before 11 a.m. Hours passed, and despite thorough searching, Loretta was never seen leaving. This was alarming. Loretta entered, but she never exited, leading investigators to believe something transpired inside the apartment that prevented her from leaving alive. While sifting through the footage, detectives observed Blake and Victoria leaving the complex multiple times on the same day Loretta disappeared. Around 2:30 p.m., Victoria and Blake were seen exiting the elevator carrying a large, heavy hockey bag, which Blake struggled to carry. He took the bag outside, presumably to his car, and then returned upstairs. Around 3 p.m., Blake reappeared with more bags. The last trip he made from their apartment to the parking lot was with Victoria, but Loretta was still nowhere in sight. A terrifying suspicion began to form. Loretta had entered the apartment, but she never left. The pressing questions were, why would two strangers attack Loretta? And where was the mysterious bag now? To find answers, detectives needed to locate Loretta's tenants. Fortunately, Loretta's bank cards were still active, and recent transactions provided a trail. Police discovered her cards were used at a store around 5 p.m. on the 13th of February, the day she vanished. Store surveillance footage showed Loretta's Toyota parked outside, and Victoria was captured on camera, leaving the store with purchases. The car's movement was then traced to a local Tim Hortons, about 10 miles from Loretta's apartment. Drive-through cameras identified Victoria wearing the same blue jacket seen in the apartment, and store footage. Inside the drive-through, a bald man, identified as Blake, was seen in the driver's seat. It was clear Victoria and Blake were using Loretta's car and cards, while Loretta remained missing. Coupled with the unsettling footage of Blake carrying heavy bags from the apartment, the implications were grim. The Halifax police immediately reported Loretta's car as stolen and awaited the tenant's next move. Within 5 days, on the 18th of February, the Harrow Police Department contacted them with good news. Loretta's stolen car had been located at a house in Harrow, Ontario. This provided sufficient grounds to arrest Victoria and Blake. Halifax police needed answers quickly. Days had passed since Loretta's disappearance, and time was critical if they hoped to bring her home alive. With Blake and Victoria in custody, investigators uncovered their criminal histories. Blake had unrelated charges pending in Calgary, and Victoria had been reported for threatening someone in Halifax. Upon searching the couple, police found Loretta's phone and bank cards in their possession, further intensifying suspicions. When questioned, both Blake and Victoria remained uncooperative, denying any knowledge of Loretta's whereabouts and claiming they hadn't seen her for days. Blake insisted Loretta had sold him her car, a claim immediately refuted by Yalson, and everyone who knew Loretta relied on her car for university and errands and had no intention of selling it. Since the couple refused to cooperate, police searched Blake's phone. In the gallery, they discovered a video recorded a few days before Loretta went missing. The investigators were stunned by its content, a drunken argument between Victoria and Blake, with Victoria repeatedly accusing Blake of wanting to end Loretta's life. When Blake attempted to deny it, Victoria demanded he stop lying. While it could be dismissed as drunken rambling, the specificity of the conversation was too striking for detectives to ignore. They were discussing Loretta's death, and she had now been missing for weeks. This was almost too perfect, a chilling piece of evidence found directly on a suspect's phone. Investigators used the video as leverage during Victoria's interrogation, and it worked. Confronted with the footage, Victoria's facade crumbled, and she confessed to a horrifying truth. Blake had suffocated Loretta in her apartment on the 13th of February, taking her life. The interrogation room fell silent, as everyone's worst fears were confirmed. The heavy hockey bag, as suspected, did not contain sports gear. Loretta's body was inside. Victoria then revealed where they had dumped the bag. Victoria led investigators to the Trans-Canada Highway near Salisbury, New Brunswick, Canada. There, by the roadside, police found the discarded hockey bag, the same one Blake was seen struggling with in the CCTV footage. Inside, Loretta's body was discovered. The examination confirmed Victoria's account. Loretta had been strangled with bare hands. Loretta's missing persons case tragically concluded. Now, police faced the challenge of gathering enough evidence to secure convictions against the couple. Despite Victoria's confession of involvement in Loretta's murder, both Blake and Victoria surprisingly pleaded not guilty at first. A judge initially ruled they would be tried together. However, before the trial commenced, both changed their pleas to guilty, recognizing the overwhelming evidence against them. According to Blake and Victoria's confessions, Loretta arrived at her apartment at 11 a.m. and was determined to collect the $400 to $600 they owed her in rent. The couple, for reasons unknown, simply had no intention of paying. Instead of settling their debt, Blake and Victoria decided on the unthinkable. They would murder Loretta. It was an infuriating revelation that Loretta lost her life simply for demanding money that was rightfully hers. This tragic event was every landlord's nightmare realized. The couple recounted that while Loretta sat in a chair, Blake attacked her from behind. Despite her small stature, Loretta fought fiercely, but Blake eventually overpowered her, ending her life using plastic bags and his bare hands. Blake then placed Loretta's body into a large hockey bag and loaded it into Loretta's own car. This detail was particularly horrifying. While Blake and Victoria casually made purchases at stores and Tim Hortons using Loretta's cards, Loretta's lifeless body lay in the trunk of her own car. The CCTV footage, viewed in hindsight, became incredibly chilling. These despicable individuals not only refused to pay their rent but also murdered their landlord, spent her money, drove her car to Harrow, and even impersonated her in texts, attempting to extract sensitive bank details from her family. The bizarre texts Yalcin received were indeed part of Blake and Victoria's twisted scheme to cover their heinous crime and steal Loretta's money. The entire case was both infuriating and profoundly sad. In the end, Blake Leggett received a life sentence with no possibility of parole for 25 years. Victoria Henneberry was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 10 years for second-degree murder. The disparity in sentences was sickening, especially considering Loretta was pregnant. These individuals took not one life, but two, yet one would be eligible for parole in just 10 years. Loretta would never meet her baby, complete her passionate thesis, or build a life with Yalcin. Blake and Victoria stole everything from Loretta, all over a few $100s. Loretta's murder was a tragedy, compounded by injustice. As an Indigenous woman, just like those she was researching for her thesis, her case highlighted systemic issues. Initially, the Halifax police were diligent, but once Loretta's Inuk heritage was revealed, the investigation's pace reportedly slowed. The treatment of Loretta's family after her death was equally heartbreaking and infuriating. Her sister, Delilah, reported that the court-appointed grief counselor made her feel deeply uncomfortable and even made advances, a deeply traumatizing experience for a grieving woman. Yet a recurring issue for Indigenous women seeking support, this exploitation, born from a blatant disregard for individuals deemed second-class citizens, was appalling. Adding insult to injury, Victoria, Loretta's accomplice, later claimed to have Indigenous ancestors on her mother's side, seeking sympathy and attempting to use this claim to gain early release from prison by contacting Indigenous women's welfare centers. This cynical manipulation backfired spectacularly. The public condemned her, and she was rightly banned from accessing Indigenous services. Her attempt to withdraw her guilty plea in 2017 was also denied. Despite the profound pain, Loretta's legacy sparked change. In 2014, her cousin, Holly Jarrett, launched the Number Amy Next campaign to amplify the voices of victims' families following Loretta's senseless murder. This campaign ignited a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, MMIWG, in 2015, which officially began in 2017. Over 2 years, nearly 3,000 individuals connected to MMIWG were interviewed. The final report, released in 2019, contained over 200 calls for justice aimed at governments, institutions, social service providers, industries, and all Canadians. Delilah, Loretta's sister, also started a blog called a homicide survivor's journey through grief, and became a social justice activist. She continues her late sister's work, raising awareness about MMIWG in schools, public events, and other platforms. Loretta's thesis professor, Dr. Darrell LaRue, along with the Community Foundation of Nova Scotia, established the Loretta Saunders Community Scholarship in 2014 to honor her memory and contributions. Loretta's murder devastated her family and community and exposed the double standards in how law enforcement handled her case. It is hoped that her story will continue to raise awareness about the injustices faced by countless Indigenous women in Canada and globally. It is an incredibly heartbreaking truth that in her quest to bring awareness to this vital cause, Loretta herself became another victim.